What
Sorry, Peter. Sorry,
is
Peter.
what age group is the book? What is it? Teens or pre-teens?
Well, this is actually just a story. It's a short story.
That's a
It's
story.
2
Okay.
pages. Yeah. I pitched it at a kind of A2 level.
Okay.
Took out the past tense so that it could be okay for seconda media. This is my idea behind it when I wrote it. So I had that kind of age group in mind when I made the story. Then I made another version, which is even lower level. And I think it could be part of an experiment to have it graded at all the different levels eventually. Let's see how it works. Yeah, and so I mean, stories in classrooms, I've experimented with it in the past. Actually, there's a teacher here, Eloisa. I once wrote a story just for her class as an experiment, and many years ago. And because I visited her class in the Monterezio in Bologna, and the class were really enthusiastic. So I said to them, look, I'd really like to write a story just for you guys, you know, with you in the story. And they said, yes, yes. They were so enthusiastic about this. So I said, okay, so who's going to be in the story? Can you give me the names of some of you who want to be in the story? Who wants to be in? Because then you'll have a part to play in the story. Of course, they all wanted to be in the story. So I had like 25 characters in this short story. Somehow we made it work, but each student had a part. They had some lines they had to read. And so, and Louise, I think, can confirm it worked really well. Every kid, it was just like most of the things like me too, and me. There was just a couple of words, but they were interested. They were involved in the story. And I was thinking, what an amazing idea that is, because like we come up with Eloise and I this idea, because you can actually adapt it to any class. You just change the names, you know. I made to have that many characters in a short story, I had to take them on a school trip. So they went to London. And that's how I managed to get all of the different dialogue in where they all said something. And they were so excited. In fact, they performed it for me, and they were just totally engaged in it because they all had their part and their role to play. So it was wonderful. So that's something also, I don't know if that as teachers, that would be something you'd be interested in experimenting with. Just anybody here be interested in doing that? In telling this story? It was called The Dance. The story was called The Dance. Any yeah, Eloise is just writing here, yeah, on the chat, but feel free to speak if you want. And I don't know if you want, and just share the experience, but even the title, the kids can choose the title. Which is really it gets them even more involved in things. And then they can negotiate their parts when they see the script and who wants to be, they can put the names in even. And this kind of is a very well, Alessandra, don't worry, I'm not gonna no, you're the doctor with I'm really grateful that you've come today when you're at the doctor's surgery. Thank you for coming. So what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to do that? Would you like to do that in your class? Anybody? Rosanna?
Hey, Michael, can I speak?
Yes, Barbara, yes.
Yeah, I think this is a wonderful idea. And just as I read Eloisa here saying, the students really will wait for the names to come up because they are so involved in the story and waiting. So I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I think it's something we could maybe even develop together, like this idea, have this template. I'm very grateful to Elisa for finding the story because I couldn't find it because it was such a long time ago, but she had it and she sent it to me. And I looked through it, like I would do it a bit dim. I would change it a little bit now. I would grade it a little bit better because I'm more experienced now at grading stories. But more or less the story is there, and it's about these kids on a school trip in London. They have kind of an adventure, but their teacher's not there because their teacher's not well. And so they come back and they surprise their teacher. So the teacher's also involved. It's a kind of an intimate, if I remember the context of this story, it was when it was the last few weeks of school. So it was like a goodbye, terza media. It was very kind of, that was the context in which the story evolved. So yeah, that was Eloisa being here made me reminded me, and I wanted to mention that it's a project maybe we could do, and you could try out in your classes, and we could share that experience. You know, you could have the original story and see how you could adjust the template, even, and then experiment it. I think it would be a really cool thing to do together. Hi, Sinzin. Hi, Monica. So shall I read the story now, The Boy in the Lake? Because I think reading a story as well to the class, obviously we want our kids to read at home. We want them to want to read. That's the ultimate goal. But we've got to find ways, entry points, ways of involving them, engaging them. And if you're reading in class something, you can get them to shadow, basically, which is simply to read a story while it's being read to them. So the story is being read aloud, and they are reading at the same time. So they've got the written word in front of them, and they're listening, and gives them a bit of confidence. Has anybody read the story? I mean, it's not like a question like, have you done your homework? It doesn't matter, obviously, but I don't know if anyone has read the story. Peter, have you read the story? You've been far too busy, I know.
But is it the story you told in the launch meeting?
Yes, but that was without it wasn't the written version. So it's completely different because it has a script now.
Okay, so it's another story then.
But it's the same story, but it's very different because it's actually not just verbally told. So it's a different animal completely.
But
basically, when you tell a story from your head, I mean, it can change very much from one time to the next, depending on your memory or your energy levels and everything. But if you're reading out a story that is written, then it's going to be the same every time. However, the energy you put into it and the way you tell the story, it will have an impact, obviously. It's very important, the delivery of a story. And that's maybe what we can even talk about today a little bit, is how you deliver a story. Because ultimately, as I said, we want to get our students engaged in stories. We have to give them some confidence sometimes that they can do it. So if you haven't read the story, that's fine. If you have the story written out in front of you, then you can read and listen, and that's great too. Or you can just listen. But you can find this story on the invitation on Facebook that we sent. So you can click and download the story anytime you want. And if all else fails, just call Facebook, our Facebook group, just send out an SOS and we will send you the story. Okay, there's no excuses. Nick, you have to read the story, no excuses. Okay, so the story is called The Boy in the Lake. I don't remember much about that day at the lake. It's September, I remember that. And it's sunny because I'm wearing my favorite t-shirt. I hear some baby ducks on the other side of the lake. They are calling for their mother. Quack, quack, quack. They are hungry, I say to myself. And so I go nearer to the edge of the water to see them better. Don't worry, I say to the ducks. Mum will be back soon. Then there is a push. And then a sound. Splash. And I don't remember anything else. I'm in the water and everything is dark. Time stops. It's difficult to explain, but I stop being myself. I am the water and the water is me. Everything is so silent. There is no light for one moment. or for an eternity. I don't know the difference. The next thing I know, there is a man shaking me and shouting. He is frightened. Are you okay? He says. I'm okay. I said, I'm okay, thank you. But I'm not okay. Now I'm frightened every time I think of that push. Who? Why? And I'm frightened of the water too. This is a problem, a big problem, because my school has a swimming pool. My school has a swimming pool. And on Wednesday, I walked down the steps of the pool into the pale blue water. 1, 2, 3. The water is cold. I try not to think of that day in the lake. Here I am safe. Here I have my big red armbands on. They look a bit strange, but they help me to feel safe in the water. My big red armbands. I don't want to feel that darkness ever again, that moment under the water when everything is black. But it's okay. I don't feel the cold or see the black anymore. I go swimming every week, and every week I feel a little bit safer. Every week the water feels a little bit warmer. And soon it is the last swimming lesson before the holidays. Everyone is excited. Slowly I go down the steps and into the water for the last time before the holidays. 1, 2, 3. Michael, come here, says my teacher. I swim towards my teacher with my big red armbands on. I just want to say that you are making great progress. Well done, says my teacher. I smile at my teacher and start to swim. After a while, I look up at the big clock. It's 11 a.m. Time to get out of the pool. No, already, I think. At that moment, my teacher calls me. Come here, Michael, she says. Swim to me. What does Miss Bassett want to speak to me about now? I ask myself. My teacher is still smiling at me. Well done, Michael, she says. Thank you, but what for, miss? I ask. You can swim. Yes, I can, miss. Yes, I can swim with these, I said, pointing at my big red armbands. No, you can really swim, my teacher says. I took the air out of your armbands while talking to you at the beginning of the lesson. I look at my armbands and see that what Miss Bassett says is true. My armbands aren't so big anymore. There is no air inside them. This means that I can swim, I say happily. Miss Bassett smiles at me again. I still remember that smile and those words. Well done, Michael. We all need people who make you feel safe, people who help you to learn, and people who say, well done to you. These people are called teachers. And now I am a father, and I often go to that same lake with my children. The lake holds no fears for me anymore. Of course, I will never forget that cold water on that warm September day, but I will also never forget Miss Bassett, teacher, facilitator, cheerleader. That's the story. Thank you for listening. The only word the kids asked for the meaning of was cheerleader at the end. No, sorry, facilitator. I was counting on that it was a Latinate word. I thought that they would be able to do that. And cheerleader, I thought with the diet of American movies that we have, that they would understand cheerleader. But I'm always mindful of the target reader when I write. And if you notice, the repetition is when the word is challenging, like armband is, although it's a compound word and arm is not a problem and band is not necessarily a problem, armband is. And so I repeat it many, many times, and I pre-taught that word before I told the story in the cinema. Any comments about the? Yes, it is. Thank you. It's a true story. Yeah, it's a story that I told the first time in 2019 to groups of teachers around Italy, and I used it as a metaphor. But this is the first time I've actually written it down, and I added some detail when I wrote it down. What do you, any comments, please? Any questions or comments, or how you could use this in class, or whether it's not possible, or whatever would be appreciated if you've got anything to say about it.
May I say something, Michael?
Yes, Sarah. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Obviously, I mean, lovely, lovely story, as other people have said. And I think that perhaps telling that story to teenagers would encourage them to open up, which is part of being a teacher, because as an adult, I can sense your vulnerability in that, you know, you're sharing this story with people. And of course, I think that encourages children to feel they can trust someone. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to use it with the students I currently teach at universities and stuff, but I think it would work really well with teenagers. And yeah, like you say, as long as you pre-teach words, you know, repetition, and also I saw someone mentioned before, you can even dramatize these things. I mean, years and years ago, I did a book, Theatre World, and you know, all the kids in the class were able to have a part, however small, and a teacher from Mantova sent us like a DVD or something. The kids had actually taken it all the way, and they'd made costumes, and the parents were involved, and they'd really just taken this small thing and transformed it. And like you say, from a small seed, one story, lots can be done, and each teacher can do what they want, I think, with their class. That's the key takeaway, really. But no, that's it, really.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay.
I think the stories are the best stories are the ones that leave lots of gaps for the imagination, for the kids to fill in with their experience and imagination. And I think that's why this story is very sparse. It's not like full of detail, because then they can jump inside it. You know, they can add pieces of themselves to it. And I think that's stories that we can use often. We're looking as for the gaps as well, where kids can relate to these stories and put something of themselves inside it. Rosanna was sharing a story with students from Vietnam last week. So it was like, it was amazing to watch. It was like, there was students from Monte Grosso d'Asti that were telling the story of their school to students in Vietnam with using Minecraft. So it was like this wonderful exchange going on. And I think, yeah, if you give kids a chance, they're really happy to tell their story as well. And in fact, I think Jung is here from Vietnam as well. Donatella, do you have a question or observation? Donatella? Maybe you're...
Oh, no, sorry, I was on my phone, so I couldn't find the thing. Hello, everybody, and lovely story, Michael. I was just thinking, it would be nice for any of the teachers here today that are going to use this story with their classes, they could actually get them to draw a cover, you know, to actually make up a cover, and each, you know, student could perhaps draw a cover or design a cover for the story.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Yeah, absolutely. That really is engaging. Yeah, I think
And they could post it on the group, you know, get see what people come up with.
Absolutely. I think it's a wonderful idea. And I know that's often how kids respond to stories. They want to draw it. They want to sort of either copy the original artwork or make their own. And again, that's that kind of reaction creation kind of cycle, which I often talk about, which I think it happens with stories very often. So yeah, wonderful idea. Let's do it. I mean, let's put these things into practice as well in your classes. If you really, the idea would be like to try and use this story. This is and see what happens. See if they're curious about it. I know that like it was tested out on a class just before the webinar that we did. And one of the students started to research a little bit about me because I was the author of it to find out other stories. And then she read one of my stories. So obviously that's not the reason I'm doing this today, but just to say that sometimes it can just change one or two kids, you know, and get them to be curious and get them to do things. So yeah, I can't read the chat box, so I don't know what if there's any questions in the chat box. Thanks a lot, Donatella, for your contribution. Thank you. Always.
Michael, I think I will use this story, this lovely story with my students because they need positive reinforcement. And I think that this story will help them to overcome their fear, to learn English. And I think also to stop the story and ask them what happens next, to stop and then to ask what you taught us last time. I think it's a very lovely story, and I think it will be useful for my students.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be really keen to find out what happens next with the what happens next. I think because it's the most powerful question that exists, I think. What happens next? Sarah, you have a question?
Yeah, turn my microphone on. Yeah, no, I was just going to say another idea, aside from like what Donatella said, the book covers. You mentioned before about grading it for different levels, and obviously then the activities can be graded, and something nice to open it up to higher level students. Why not ask them what makes you feel like you've been pushed into a lake, you know, and then you're kind of bringing in other feelings, and obviously you can experiment with a wider range of grammar and stuff. So again, maybe you could put together a list of questions that for different levels teachers could ask to elicit other responses. Just really leading on from what Rosanna said about, you know, even getting them to guess what happens next. Okay, there's lots of ways people can take this.
Absolutely. I think it's like when you up the level, you don't want to fill in too many. It's not about filling in the gaps. It's changing the language, the vocabulary a little bit. I mean, writing a story is like a piece of music in the sense that when you're delivering a story, I wanted to say that you slow down. You know, if it was always the same rhythm, it would get boring.
Yeah.
You read to your students, you have to like slow down for the big moments and raise your voice a little, and then go fast when you're increasing the intensity. If you see it like a movie, it's like that with the background music, you know how to feel.
You need the suspense, don't you?
Yeah. So maybe you can put a bit more, it's about the different kinds of gaps you can put in, but it's always leaving space for our students to respond to it and to put themselves into it. I mean, here is a metaphor really, for facing fear.
Exactly, yeah. The story can just be a springboard for a whole load of other activities, which, depending on what the students need, what the teacher needs to help them with, can go off in different directions, So great
absolutely. Story. And also it's a tribute to teachers, because, basically this is what we do. This is what we do day in, day out, because we don't just teach the notions, we also create an environment for them to learn, and creating a safe environment as well, where they feel that they can actually jump in. And so the armbands really are, and obviously the cheerleader part as well is important sometimes, to be there and say, well done. It's another role that teachers cover effortlessly, and sometimes we move from one to the next. People don't realize it's not just about teaching, it's a part of it. It's like, and even if it's like you're a swimming instructor, you're doing all of these things all the time.
I think as well, if I might say, that sometimes teachers forget just how fragile teenagers are, and that they need that reassurance. In the primary school, the focus is very much on that, and then kind of they go to middle school and they're kind of set afloat, if we want to keep on with our water metaphors today. And sometimes they still need to know that there's a little kind of life jacket for them, and someone who will listen and encourage them to learn, which is what it's all about, really. But you
I
know,
I
yeah, and
think,
watching,
I think graded readers offer that life jacket. I think they
Mhm.
offer those armbands.
yeah,
And that's why they're so important in class. And like stories work because they create a kind of energy. They create interest because we're all engaged. But stories are like what make us human. I think one of the main things that makes us human. Like, and so if we can find the right stories that have those armbands, so the kids can feel that they can read it. I mean, I think I've had more than one student say to me, like, "Oh, I read a book in English," and it's a big deal, you know, to sort of that first book as well.
Mhm.
It's important, I think, or that first story, that first input. Absolutely. So I agree with you. I agree that it's very important as well, and to kind of provide that support and provide the conditions. And this is what teachers do. These are graded readers are one of the tools that you can use, I think, to help.
Well, and they give a context, don't they, as well, to, you know, students see the grammar and vocabulary in their course books, but often if they haven't had experience of visiting an English speaking country, it's hard to see how the language is used in a real life context. And again, stories give them that. Okay, there's natural use of language. So obviously we're all book lovers here anyway. We're all aware of the benefits of reading, but yeah, it's just nice that they can be a springboard.
I mean, we can tell our students until we're blue in the face that reading is the foundation of learning. But they're not going to believe that unless they actually do it, you know, and you've got to find a way to get them to do it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris is saying in the corner, I can just see the beginning of his comment. They're succeeding in reading their first book in English and enjoying it. It is dramatic for some learners, but that's all I get of that's all I can see of what you've said, Chris.
You didn't believe they could. Sorry, I'll just finish that for you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. That first book is a fundamental thing. Actually, it's something, it's actually called, has a name, a home run book is called, it's like the book that, that takes you home, basically, or that you know, baseball, I don't know baseball very well, but you do a complete circuit of the, we have some Americans we have at least one in the group.
I'm going to turn my microphone off here. I know nothing about American culture and baseball.
No, but like basically a home run is when you get a point for your team. But if you find that book that changes, that gives them that confidence, that's a big deal. That's a big challenge to that needs to be faced. I think they've got to have a positive experience, and then they may go on to read more. Then they'll be interested in reading more. So as teachers, as facilitators, maybe that home run book, we got to sort of like push the certain stories maybe in the right direction, not saying necessarily choose the first book for the student, but to make them available. Maybe it could be like steer them in the right direction, nudge them in the right direction so they have that positive experience. One of the great things about extensive reading is the notion of choice, obviously, is that they have a choice, that there is a choice, that it's not like they're not obliged to read this story. But maybe it can even be a guided choice, that first choice, you know, this among a certain number of books. What do you think? Any thoughts on that? Anybody? I don't want to take up all of the talking time.
Michael, I wanted to raise the issue of bullying because your first book, Egghead, was all based on bullying. And here I think it is still you and it's those same bullies that pushed you into the water, right?
Yes. It's my story, yeah.
Because you haven't mentioned that at all, but it was it was the boy or boys who pushed you into the water were those bullies that you won a prize with Egghead, right? That was one of the. Was that your very first book you wrote, or was?
That was the first original story that I wrote.
Okay.
And I remember like it was a big, and I wrote it because I saw my teacher from middle school at my surprise birthday party, and seeing her again, realizing how important she was to me and to my life and what the difference she made. I determined to write this book so I could give it to my teacher, you know, even if it was like 50 years down the line. There was that much at stake for me. I wanted to write this book and get it to her, and I did. I actually knocked on her door and gave her the book, Egghead. And this is one of the stories that didn't get in the original story, and I think that's one potential use of it is for teachers if they want to introduce Egghead. This is like a way of introducing, or an extra story that I have many of these short stories related to that period, because bullying is such a massive issue, not just in Italy, but all around the world. And it's incredible how some kids open up about being bullied because of the story, because they can talk about bullying through the eyes of a character in a story. It's much easier than talking about bullying firsthand, about their own direct experience. It's a way of processing and sharing and disburdening from that experience. Basically, this story that Egghead is one of the stories that I think, and I mean, also Sarah's written a story about bullying as well. So, and I think it's an issue that you know, stories can help with big problems. You can use simple words for big problems. You can put big ideas in tiny hands with graded readers, with stories. You know, it's something. Hi, Maria Christina, I see you're moving. You've got, this is the kind of magic, I think, that stories
I think
do.
I've told you, Michael, sorry, and you just mentioned the story about bullying, and I told you that actually I read your story, Egghead, okay, because I'd been asked to write a story about kind of, you know, cyberbullying, and I read yours, and I think I've told you, and I'm happy to share with everyone, that I felt inspired after reading Egghead, because it was one of the first readers, and I've been teaching for a very long time, it was one of the first readers that I read and thought, wow, students would love this. It's a real relatable story with really natural language. It's hard to do that with a graded reader, we know, okay, because you're limited by the words and the grammar constructions. But I actually read your story as a story. It wasn't in any way stilted. And, you know, and I knew that students would be able to get the pleasure of reading a real book and a real story, but at an appropriate level. So just hats off to you there, really, because honestly, you inspired me to do my graded reader.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that. I mean, you've said that to me before, like personally, but like to share it like that as well, hear it a second time. It's lovely.
True. It's true. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I mean, actually, it's an interesting. What you brought up there. I think as writers of graded readers, it's our duty to try to make them to make it a real story, that it's not like a language exercise, that it is a real story. And I think it's possible to do if you're honest. If you try and be honest, and like what you're trying to do, you're really trying to share something, and you keep that target reader in mind at all times, because with this kind of writing, it's the most intimate relationship you can have with the reader, because you cannot lose them.
No. And you have to be true to your own voice, but while grappling with the constraints of the grammar and the lexical groups that you can use, it's not easy. But
well, I mean, I tell a story that's quite about this, because when I wrote a graded reader version of the Canterbury Tales many years ago, and I looked at the list of words I had, and God was a too difficult word. Basically, it was an A2 word, and I was writing Canterbury Tales at A1 level.
Oh gosh!
And I was really kind of like, I phoned I spoke to the editor and said, "Can I?" And if someone had heard me outside of, like, they would have thought I was having an existential crisis, because I said, I need God. And the editor said,
"You have to give me God."
You can't have God because God is A2. And I said, but how can I not have God? I'm writing the Canterbury Tales. I need God. And so the editor said, well, put God in the glossary, which I thought, well, I said, how can I put God in the glossary? Apart from the fact that I may be struck down I may be, I mean, I may go to hell like immediately for doing such a disrespectful thing. I said all the philosophers over the thousands of years have tried to define what God is, and little me,
In 5 words.
in 5 words, using A1 language, because let's remember, if we write a glossary, it has to be at the level of the story.
Yeah.
So I have to have an A1 definition of God when Plato couldn't do it. Then what chance have I got? You know, I was saying all of these
You're
things.
bringing back memories for me of I had to do Oliver Twist at A2, so I was a bit luckier
Yeah.
than you. I was upper level, but that was no mean feat.
I mean, that's why I'm actually, I like writing my own stories, because if God is too difficult a word, then I just don't have God. You know, and the devil is B2, by the way.
Really?
The devil is much more complex,
Gosh.
vocabulary. But God is A2. But I think that that's the kind of graded readers that are coming out now. You can find ones that are doing these kinds of things, that are writing. A student can pick it up and feel like it's a real story. I think it's really important to, personally, this is something we can discuss as well one day, is like, I think that the exercises should be right at the back of the book, so that you've got like a continuous, seamless story, so the kids can feel that it's a real story. And Peter's attempting to make a definition of God here, which would make you godlike if you managed to do it, Peter, because no one else has ever managed to do it. Even the pronoun is a problem, you know. What do you do with God? With, you know, so it's an interesting discussion, and I think it's an important one, that we stick to the rules. We've got to keep the target reader always with us at all times. And we've got to be honest about this. You know, we can't like skip corners. We can't take shortcuts. You can't put in a word if it's above level. You've got to sort of respect that. You can't put in a past perfect form. So so basically, yeah, this story is they are armbands. These graded readers can be a resource for. If you look at this library, it's full of there's a section of graded readers. And so the student can go, if they read the story and they understand, they follow, then they can find another story at the same level. Because after the home run book, it's important that they have another one. Because when they close that book and they say, have you got another one? You know, what do you do if you say, oh, that's the only one, you know, that I have? So it's important to have a stock of books that you think, so that student is really keen, you can respond. You've got something to respond with immediately. You can get kids interested as well by getting them to maybe read different ones, different stories over the holidays, maybe 3 groups. And then when they come back, they talk about their book and they try to convince the others to read that book. They advocate that book. This happens in some countries in Asia. They call it a biblio battle. And it's really good fun because they get attached to their book. And they really want to win. They want to get the winner is the group that manages to convince most others to join their group and read their story. So lots of things that we can discuss in these kind of happy hours. And also share, if you try these things out. It's coming to the summer now, and Era Italy now is going to, over the next few weeks, kind of talk about some of the books that are available, if you haven't already decided. And then you can try out these things, you know, when you go back in September, because often the problem is, excuse me, I've been talking all day. The problem is that they read the book in the summer and there's no real follow-up often to the book. And like, if they've read this story, this is the time when you want to, like, as soon as possible, is to sort of have some kind of follow-up. And a follow-up could be that kind of thing, a biblio battle. So it's one of the things you can do. And if you try it out, you can let the rest of the group know, you know. Is there anything else in the chat box? Any questions or anything?
I think everyone's just saying about the biblio battles. I mean, I said it's a great idea, and Christina and some other people have said, Maria, Christina, you know, I think that's kind of got people feeling enthusiastic. Peter is asking you if you'd like to do a YL version and a B2 version of Egghead, but I'll leave that one to Peter.
Well, yeah, I would love to. I would love to do it, but I don't know whether I can because of publishing rights. You know, like that's one issue, is that one of the reasons I've just wanted to spend a year or two writing my own stories and publishing them myself is because I can do what I want with them. So like this story here, for example, Egghead is a remake of, it's a sequel, or it's taken Egghead in a totally different time frame, like a different world, because that I can do that with. I can write, and I think it's an excellent idea, Peter. I think it's something that I would like to try with a story, is to make 3 or 4 versions of it, so that I don't know, I'm not sure whether it would be useful for individual teachers, but maybe because you do have like mixed ability classes all the time. It's a reality. So you could have like an A2 book and a B1 book, and you can give out those books according to the level. Remember, the level is important to a decision to make. You know, you don't want to replicate the kind of reading, in my opinion, that they do in class, where it's a difficult kind of reading task and time consuming and slow. You want to give them a task, a reading task that is where they can read in the fast lane, as the title of this meeting is, you know, reading in the fast lane. You need to give them experience where they can read fluently, where they can feel confident and they can understand almost everything. In that process, they'll be recycling things, they'll be getting more confidence, they'll be improving their skills, and creating, maybe starting a new habit, you know, of reading, all of these different things. So the choice of level as well is very important. If you have a student who is like, let's say, I know it's difficult to generalize, but has a B1 level, you want to give them an A2 story rather than even, you know, because you don't want them to have, because in class they do that kind of reading already, where they have a difficult road to take, where they've got like new structures, new vocabulary, and they'll just think, oh, it's same old, the same old stuff, the same kind of thing that and they won't read on. So extensive reading is also, I think, is about that. It's about, you know, like all kinds of learning. There is this extensive aspect, you know, riding a bicycle. You get better at tennis by playing tennis. It's not just about technique, and technique is important. You need to know how to hold the racket. You need how to throw the ball. You need to know how to position yourself around the court. All of these things are really important. But if you don't play, it's difficult to get better. And extensive reading is about playing. It's about playing the game and giving your kids the chance to play. So this is what doing these kind of things like biblio battles and getting students to read at home, and or get involved in things where they're telling stories to others, or whatever it is giving them the chance to play a little bit and to enjoy, and to be amazed that actually, well, it's very motivating. You know, motivation is one of the key ingredients of motivation is confidence. It's one of the 4 major ingredients of motivation is confidence. And so we're giving our students that, if nothing else, we're giving them that. But actually, it's so much more we give them if we do this. So much more. And research, and if being one of the great things about the Extensive Reading Association in Italy is you can access a lot of the theory as well, which will confirm what I'm saying, that reading is the foundation. Is that if you if the students read, it has a knock-on effect on all the other skills, even listening, writing, speaking. They become better, not just at reading. And this has been kind of proved to be the case time and time again. And even in their mother tongue. I'm the living proof of this. I've come from a family that is really not academic at all. I was the only person in my family to read. I loved reading. I remember asking my dad once, you know, I asked him I said, have you ever read a book? I said to my dad, and he got quite offended. And he said, yes, I have. And I said, really, what was the book? What was it? I was really curious. And he said, well, it was green. And I said, what do you mean it's green? He said, well, the cover of the book was green. And that's all he could remember of the one book that he had read. And so I've always been a bit of a black sheep in my family because I've always enjoyed studying. I've always done pretty well. It's the thing I do best. And it's because I read every day of my life at least 2 hours. And that's the thing, you know, I'm living proof that, as Christina said, even in your mother tongue, it's the same kind of thing. It changes. So we want to give our children this kind of access to this, our students, to this mine, let's say, this gold mine. Any other comments? We're getting towards the end of our happy hour. I mean, I even asked somebody I think I asked Christina, how long is is it going to be? And she said, it's happy hour. It's an hour. It's an hour. It's an hour long. I was just to say, like, I was with Maria Cristina there. I was at her school 3 weeks ago, and we had a great chat about Egghead and Egghead the movie. And last week I was at
Yes,
Rosanna's
of course.
school. I was at Rosanna's school, and so was Barbara, as we were there. And of course, there's also that possibility, you know, just if you want to have an experience where maybe I can share this story directly or other stories, just invite me to your schools and I will come. It's not a threat. I will come if you want me to come, obviously.
There is also
Michael?
sorry.
Sorry, Maria Cristina?
No, there is also the Lucatelli School here in Tolentino, which wants to next year, maybe, yeah? If you agree.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Tolentino.
Yes, there is Michela Nerpiti is a teacher, she's a colleague of mine, and she would like to invite you next year, Michael.
Wonderful. I'll be there. Definitely. Thank you.
My students were very happy to meet Michael again this year. They read Egghead and Egghead the movie. They loved both the books because they are easy. They understand them. And with easy words, simple words, Michael wrote about great problems and great truth also. So my students love the book, and I think that they are going to read the drums next summer.
Oh, yes.
So they love the way how you write. They love and they understand what you express, what you write in your book.
I think it's one of the most gratifying parts of what I do is that I get the chance to strike up relationships with teachers and to meet their students every year. And like I was speaking to the second year students of the school here and say, well, you know, when I come next, you tell me how, you know, what you've been reading. Have you gone to the library? And because I'm going to leave these books in the library late today for the 3 stories I've written this last year. And so I'm going to ask them, you know, I'm going to say, have you picked up these books? Have you read them? What do you think? And maybe, just maybe they will, because they know I'm coming, you know. So, and like, that's one of the great things is like to go to schools like Rosanna's school and this school here is just it's a real privilege to sort of have this opportunity to change, I don't know, to change a few hearts and minds, let's say. Which is, you know, the best we can hope for. There's no way that we can hope for every single student in the class suddenly becoming, you know, really great avid readers or whatever, but we work with percentages as always. You know, we're looking to have an impact, all of us, in the best way we can. But I like your idea, Peter, of the different levels, and it's something I'm interested in this idea. So maybe we can even think about that, how that could be done. Could even be a project that we work on in some way, take a story and then maybe have 2 different levels that are quite similar. A2 and B1 or something. But similar, I mean, not too far apart. So a teacher then has got like a choice of the two different levels for the individual student.
Because I was thinking of, in the spring, I wanted to invite you with one of the, the various dates on bullying. There's the United Nations one. There's the Canadian one called the Pink Shirt, which I think is really nice, very nice. Because somebody was made fun of because he wore a pink shirt. So everybody in the school wore a pink shirt. And I thought that was a great thing.
That's great. This is amazing. That's what happens with stories as well. Sorry, Peter, but you just made me. I've remembered. Like that's what happened with Egghead. Like I went to a school in Ostia in Rome, and they brought a football with them, and like it was orange. So I immediately understood that they were fans of Roma and not of Lazio. I remembered that when they asked me what team I preferred. But after the meeting, they took the ball and they bought it with them because they wanted to play football with me. Because in the story, I'm not allowed to play football, but the other boys stopped me from playing football. They wanted to make it right. 50 years have gone past and they wanted to make something that was perceived to be wrong. They wanted to correct it. That's again what a story can do. And so I was out there playing football with these kids. They run rings around me. I mean, destroyed me totally, obviously. But the point is that they felt the need to do that, to make things right. And that's another thing that's crazy. It's just amazing about stories, that the things it can do. We're going to wind up, I think, because we've got like 2 more minutes. It's been great. I've really enjoyed talking to you. I mean, I think be interesting, like to have your feedback on it, and if you think it's a good idea. But obviously the holidays are coming up, so I reckon the next one we could do probably would be like September or something like that.
Michael, do you want to remind everyone about the 4 dates that are going to happen in the next few days with presentations of teachers? I haven't started advertising that yet. With Donatella, what is it exactly? I saw that there were 4 dates where.
Yes. There's going to be 4 dates. Christina's got that. I mean, information. I think she put it down on the Facebook page. If you look at the Facebook page, you'll see that there'll be like, I mean, different moments when publishers will share their work. I'm going to post something on there. I'm not a publisher, but my little contribution to the stories I write, so I'll post something. But then every week a different publisher is going to post what their summer offerings are, so that you can get a full idea of all the different things that are available. As I said at the launch webinar, Italy is at the top of the league in terms of graded readers, because on the language learner literature awards, there are 18 finalists in the 6 different categories, and 6 of the stories are made in Italy. Sarah's story is in the final. One of my stories is in the final. And we're actually, I think, in the same final, I think, us 2. But we're very good friends. Whoever wins, that's great.
Yeah, I was laughing about this with someone today. I said, "Oh, I'm going to to a webinar with Michael." I said, "We're both in the final, actually." I said, "But we're working together on the thing." I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it?
No,
It's just nice to see the stories out there, I think.
It's nice to see the stories out there, and already being in the final is a big deal.
Yeah, I didn't even know mine was being
really
submitted, so I was very surprised.
I'm really happy that we're in the final together. And but the point is that there are another 4 stories as well. People like from made in Italy. So 1/3 of the finalists are Italy. So we should have an Italian representation.
We need a new little logo, don't we? Active in Italy, roots in Britain, something to fly the British flag too. Michael, come on.
Yes, of course, yeah. It's Anglo-Italian.
Exactly.
But so it's been great. We should so keep in touch with the Facebook group. The Facebook group is the means of communication that we have, or the YouTube channel. You can see all of the presentations, and if you didn't see them in the our launch webinar, have a look at them. They're all lots of different things on offer, and the Facebook group is very active, and really it's about your participation. If you want to, we want you to participate, and if you want to play a part in the growth of Extensive Reading Fund Association in Italy, let us know. We'd be happy to invite you to sort of help us out. We need people to help us out with this organization, so just let us know, and you're more than welcome. Your contribution is precious. So take care, all of you. Then I'll say good afternoon, good evening to you. Have a lovely evening, and speak soon. Let's carry on the conversation on Facebook, okay, or wherever you want to.
Bye,
Okay.
everybody. Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
thanks. Thanks. Goodbye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Chris. Thanks for coming.